The sun was dipping low over Sunset Shores, painting the North Carolina sky in shades of orange and pink. It was July 12, 2024, and the beach was alive with the sounds of summer, kids laughing, waves crashing, seagulls squawking overhead. Tom Harper, a 42-year-old boat mechanic with calloused hands and a tired smile, sat on a folding chair, his phone pressed to his ear. He was trying to wrap up a work call about a busted engine, his eyes drifting to the horizon. This was supposed to be a special weekend, a rare getaway for him and his 17-year-old daughter, Emma. They hadn't taken a family trip since his wife, Lisa, passed away 6 years ago, and Tom was determined to make it count. Emma was out there on the beach, her blonde ponytail bouncing as she snapped photos with her Polaroid camera. At 17, she was a bundle of energy, always chasing the perfect shot or dreaming about her future as an investigative journalist. She'd been accepted to UNC for the fall, and Tom couldn't be prouder. "Dad, look at this light," she called earlier, holding up a photo of the waves. He grinned and waved her off, promising to check it out later. Now, as he argued with a client about repair costs, he barely noticed her wandering toward the quieter end of the beach. Emma knelt in the sand, framing a shot of the sunset through a piece of driftwood. Her camera clicked, spitting out another Polaroid. She was so caught up in the moment that she didn't notice the young man approaching until he spoke. "That's a great angle," he said, his voice friendly. "You a photographer?" She looked up, startled but flattered. He was in his mid-20s, with sun-bleached hair and a camera slung around his neck. "Just a hobby," Emma said, smiling. "I'm Emma. You shoot too?" "Name's Dylan," he replied, crouching beside her. "Yeah, I dabble. You've got a good eye, though. Bet you'd get some killer shots down by the dunes. The light's perfect there right now." Emma hesitated, glancing back at her dad. Tom was still on his phone, half turned away. She didn't want to bother him. He'd been so stressed lately. "I don't know," she said. "It's kind of far." "It's just over there," Dylan said, pointing to a stretch of beach where the crowd thinned out. 5 minutes. I'll show you a spot most people miss. You'll love it." Emma bit her lip, then nodded. "Okay, but I gotta be quick." She grabbed her camera and followed Dylan, her flip-flops kicking up sand. The dunes loomed ahead, casting long shadows. She didn't see the white van parked just beyond them, its engine idling softly. Back at the chair, Tom finally hung up, cursing under his breath. He looked around for Emma, expecting to see her nearby, maybe chasing a seagull with her camera. But the beach was emptying out, families packing up as the air cooled. "Emma," he called, standing up. No answer. He scanned the shoreline, his heart picking up speed. "Emma." He jogged toward the water, his eyes darting from one group to another. A couple of kids were building a sandcastle, but no sign of his daughter. "Hey, have you seen a girl with a Polaroid camera?" he asked a woman folding a beach towel. She shook her head, offering a sympathetic smile. Tom's chest tightened. He ran toward the lifeguard stand, where a young guard was packing up. "My daughter's missing," he said, his voice shaking. "She's 17, blonde, about this tall. She was right here." The lifeguard grabbed his radio. "I'll call it in." "When did you last see her?" 15 minutes ago. Maybe 20, Tom said, running a hand through his graying hair. He felt sick, his mind replaying every moment he'd been distracted. Why hadn't he watched her closer? Within minutes, the beach was buzzing with activity. Local police arrived, their lights flashing in the fading daylight. Officer Rachel Coleman, a seasoned detective with sharp eyes and a calm demeanor, took Tom's statement. "We'll set up a search," she said. "Tell me everything you remember." Tom described Emma's blue swimsuit, her camera, her habit of wandering off to take photos. "She wouldn't just leave," he said, his voice breaking. "She's a good kid. Something's wrong." Coleman nodded, jotting notes. "We'll check the water and the surrounding area." "Any chance she went for a swim?" "No way," Tom said. "She's a strong swimmer, but she sticks to the shallows, and she'd never leave her camera behind." He pointed to the sand near his chair, where a single Polaroid lay half buried. It showed the sunset, but in the corner, there was a blurry figure, a man, maybe, standing too close to the frame. Coleman bagged the photo as evidence. "We'll look into this. For now, stay here in case she comes back." But Emma didn't come back. The search stretched into the night, with volunteers combing the beach and divers checking the waves. Tom paced the shoreline, calling her name until his voice was hoarse. He kept picturing her smile, the way she'd hug him after a long day. "I'm sorry, Lisa," he whispered, thinking of his late wife. I let her down. Meanwhile, miles away, Emma woke up in the back of a moving van, her wrists bound with zip ties. Her head throbbed, and her mouth tasted like chemicals. The last thing she remembered was following Dylan to the dunes, then a sharp sting in her neck. Panic surged through her, but she forced herself to stay calm. She was Emma Harper, the girl who'd aced every debate club argument and never backed down from a challenge. She had to think. The van was dark, but she could make out crates and ropes around her. She wiggled her fingers, feeling for anything she could use. Her camera was gone, but her swimsuit pocket held a small shell she'd picked up earlier. With trembling hands, she scratched her initials each into the van's metal floor, praying someone would find it. The van slowed, and voices came from the front. "She's a good one," a man said. "Dylan," she realized. "Boss'll be happy. Young, pretty. No trouble. Better hope so." Another voice growled. "We're behind schedule. Ship leaves in 3 days." Emma's heart sank. A ship? Where were they taking her? She thought of her dad. Probably frantic by now. "I'm sorry, Dad," she whispered, tears stinging her eyes. "I'll find a way back. I promise." Back at Sunset Shores, the first rays of dawn revealed no trace of Emma. Detective Coleman approached Tom, her face grim. "We've got divers out there and dogs on the beach," she said. "But the tide's strong, and there's no sign of her yet." Tom shook his head, his jaw tight. "She didn't drown. Someone took her. I know it." Coleman placed a hand on his shoulder. "We're not giving up, Mr. Harper. But you need to prepare for all possibilities." Tom didn't respond. He stared at the Polaroid in the evidence bag, the blurry man haunting him. Whoever he was the key to finding Emma. And Tom would do whatever it took to bring his daughter home. The morning after Emma vanished, Sunset Shores felt like a different place. The cheerful bustle of the beach was gone, replaced by the hum of police radios and the somber faces of volunteers. Tom Harper stood at the edge of the search area, his eyes bloodshot from a sleepless night. The ocean stretched out before him, vast and unyielding, mocking his hope. He clutched the Polaroid photo of the sunset. The blurry figure in the corner burned into his mind. That man, whoever he was, had taken his daughter. Tom was sure of it. Detective Rachel Coleman approached, her notepad in hand. "Mr. Harper, we've got teams combing the beach and divers checking the currents," she said, her voice steady but kind. "We're doing everything we can." Tom nodded, his throat tight. "What about the photo? That guy in the background, he's got to be involved." Coleman glanced at the evidence bag. "We're running it through enhancement software, but it's blurry. No clear facial features. We're also checking for witnesses who saw a man matching that description." "It's not enough," Tom said, his voice rising. "Emma's out there, scared, maybe hurt. You gotta move faster." "I know it's hard," Coleman said, placing a hand on his arm. "But we're following every lead. We found a white van abandoned on Route 17, about 10 miles from here. No plates, wiped clean. We're dusting for prints now." Tom's heart leaped. A van? Someone saw a white van leaving the beach last night. That's gotta be it. "Maybe," Coleman said cautiously. "But we don't have enough to confirm it's connected. We're also looking at Emma's phone records and social media for any unusual activity." Tom ran a hand through his hair, frustration boiling over. He wanted to shake the detective. Make her understand that Emma wasn't just a case file. She was his kid, the girl who'd leave sticky notes on his toolbox with silly drawings. The one who'd made him laugh through the darkest days after Lisa's death. But yelling wouldn't help. He took a deep breath. "Just keep me posted, okay?" Coleman nodded. "I will. Go home. Get some rest. We'll call you with any updates." Tom didn't go home. He couldn't face the empty house, Emma's room with her unmade bed and scattered Polaroids. Instead, he drove to the beach parking lot, where volunteers were still searching. He joined them, walking the dunes, calling Emma's name until his voice cracked. Every washed-up piece of seaweed or glint of glass made his heart race, only to crash when it wasn't her. By noon, the volunteers started to thin out, their faces heavy with pity. Tom kept going, driven by a stubborn hope that refused to die. Meanwhile, Emma was fighting her own battle. She was locked in a small, windowless room in a warehouse, the air thick with the smell of oil and salt. Her wrists ached from the zip ties, now replaced by a metal cuff chaining her to a pipe. The room was bare except for a thin mattress and a bucket in the corner. She'd been stripped of her swimsuit, given a shapeless gray dress that itched against her skin. Her camera was gone, but the memory of scratching her initials into the van's floor gave her a flicker of strength. She had to keep leaving clues, had to believe someone would find them. The door creaked open, and Dylan stepped in, his easygoing beach vibe replaced by a cold stare. He carried a tray of stale bread and water. "Eat," he said, setting it down. "You'll need your strength." Emma glared at him, her voice hoarse. "Why are you doing this? Where am I?" Dylan avoided her eyes. "Doesn't matter. Just do what you're told, and you'll be fine." "Fine," Emma snapped, her fear giving way to anger. "You drugged me, chained me up. Let me go, or my dad will find you." Dylan's jaw tightened. "Your dad's not coming." "Nobody is. Get used to it." He turned to leave. But Emma caught a glimpse of a tattoo on his wrist, a triangle with a wave inside. She filed it away, her journalist instincts kicking in. Details mattered. They could save her. As the door slammed shut, Emma's bravado faltered. She sank to the mattress, tears welling up. She thought of her dad, probably tearing the beach apart looking for her. "I'm still here, Dad," she whispered, clutching the chain. "Don't give up." Back in Sunset Shores, the police investigation hit one dead end after another. By the end of the first week, the divers found nothing in the ocean, and the dogs lost Emma's scent at the dunes. The white van yielded no prints, no DNA, just a faint scratch on the floor that the text dismissed as rust. The enhanced Polaroid photo was still too grainy to identify the man. Detective Coleman called Tom to the station, her face etched with regret. "We're not closing the case," she said, "but we're scaling back the active search. Without new leads, we can't justify the resources. It's possible Emma was swept out by a riptide, or she didn't drown," Tom cut in, his voice sharp. "That photo proves someone was with her." "You're giving up too soon," Coleman sighed. "I'm not giving up, Mr. Harper. But we've interviewed everyone on that beach. Checked every camera in a 5-mile radius. We're doing all we can with what we have." Tom stood, his chair scraping the floor. "Then I'll do it myself." He stormed out, ignoring Coleman's call to stay calm. Back at home, he couldn't sit still. Emma's absence was everywhere, her sneakers by the door, her journal on the coffee table. He opened the journal, hoping for a clue, but found only her dreams, sketches of newsrooms, notes about college. His eyes landed on the Polaroid from the beach, now back from the police. He studied it under a lamp, the blurry man taunting him. "Who are you?" he muttered, his fist clenching. That night, Tom couldn't sleep. He fired up his laptop and started searching online, typing "Missing Girl Beach, North Carolina" into Google. He found a news article from 2 years ago about a 16-year-old named Mia, who vanished from a beach 200 miles south. The details were eerily similar. A young girl, a crowded beach, no trace. The article mentioned a blurry photo of a man near Mia, but the police had no leads. Tom's pulse quickened. This wasn't a coincidence. He dug deeper, finding a forum for families of missing persons. One post caught his eye, from a user named LostHope82. "My daughter disappeared from a beach. Police found nothing. I have a photo of a man near her, but it's too blurry. Anyone else?" Tom created an account and messaged the user, attaching Emma's Polaroid. "I think we're dealing with the same guy," he wrote. "Let's talk." The next morning, Tom got a reply. The user, a woman named Karen, agreed to meet at a diner halfway between their towns. Tom grabbed his keys, a spark of hope igniting. If Karen's story matched Emma's, he might finally have a lead. But as he drove, a nagging fear grew. Whoever took Emma was smart, organized, and dangerous. Tom was just a mechanic, out of his depth. Still, he thought of Emma's smile, her voice calling him Dad. He'd face anything to bring her home. In the warehouse, Emma sat in the dark, her mind racing. She'd overheard Dylan talking to another man about a ship leaving soon. Wilmington, they'd said. The name stuck with her. Wilmington was a port city, not far from Sunset Shores. If she could get a message out, maybe someone would find her. She tugged at the chain, testing its strength. It didn't budge, but she wasn't giving up. Emma Harper was a fighter, and she'd keep fighting until her dad found her, or she found her way back to him. Tom Harper's pickup truck rumbled down Highway 17, the North Carolina sun beating through the windshield. It was July 20th, 2024, 8 days since Emma vanished from Sunset Shores. The radio was off. The only sound the hum of tires and Tom's racing thoughts. He was headed to a diner in Jacksonville, an hour's drive from home, to meet Karen, the woman from the online forum who'd lost her daughter. Mia, under eerily similar circumstances. Tom's hands gripped the steering wheel, his knuckles white. This meeting was his first real lead since the police scaled back their search. And he couldn't shake the feeling that every second counted. The diner, a faded brick building called Sally's, was half empty when Tom pulled in. He spotted Karen right away, a woman in her late 40s with tired eyes and a nervous fidget, sitting in a corner booth. She clutched a coffee mug like it was a lifeline. Tom slid into the seat across from her, his heart pounding. "Karen? I'm Tom Harper. Thanks for meeting me." Karen nodded, her gaze flicking to the door. "You're Emma's dad. I saw your post. That photo you sent. It's like the one I have of Mia." She pulled a worn Polaroid from her purse and slid it across the table. It showed a teenage girl on a beach, laughing, with a blurry man in the background. The resemblance to Emma's photo was uncanny. The same slouched posture, the same vague outline. Tom's breath caught. This is him. The guy who took Emma. It's gotta be. Karen's eyes filled with tears. Mia disappeared 2 years ago from Wrightsville Beach. She was 16, loved surfing. I thought she just wandered off, but she never came back. The police said she probably drowned, but I knew better. She was too smart for that. Tom leaned forward, his voice low. What else do you know? Anything about who this guy is? Karen hesitated, glancing around the diner. After Mia vanished, I started digging. Found others online, parents, siblings, all saying their kids went missing from beaches, always with a blurry photo of some guy. I think it's a pattern. Organized. I got a tip from someone who claimed they worked for a company called Global Trade Solutions, GTS. Said they use beaches to scout kids, then move them through ports like Wilmington. Tom's pulse quickened. Wilmington? That's close to Sunset Shores. Did you tell the police? I tried, Karen said, her voice bitter. They didn't take me seriously. Said I was grasping at straws. But I saw their logo once, on a van near the beach, a triangle with a wave inside. I've been too scared to dig deeper. These people, they're dangerous. Tom's mind flashed to the white van the police found, the one with the faint scratch Emma's initials might have made. He hadn't seen a logo, but it could have been removed. I'm not scared, he said, though his stomach churned. I'll do whatever it takes to find Emma. Karen reached across the table, her hand trembling. Be careful, Tom. If GTS is behind this, they've got money, connections. They don't leave loose ends. Tom nodded, tucking Mia's photo into his pocket. Thanks, Karen. I'll let you know what I find. As he left the diner, a fire burned in his chest. GTS. Wilmington. It was more than he'd had in days. He climbed into his truck and headed straight for the port city, determined to chase this lead before it slipped away. Meanwhile, in a warehouse on the outskirts of Wilmington, Emma Harper sat on the cold floor, her chain clinking as she shifted. The room was dim, lit only by a flickering bulb. She'd lost track of time, but she guessed it was over a week since the beach. Her body ached, and hunger gnawed at her stomach, but her mind was sharp. She'd been watching, listening, piecing together what she could. The men guarding her, Dylan and a gruff older guy they called Vince, talked about a shipment leaving soon. Emma was part of it, along with other girls she hadn't seen but heard crying through the walls. Dylan came in, his face tense. Get up, he said, tossing her a pair of sneakers. We're moving you tonight. Emma's heart raced. Moving where? She asked, keeping her voice steady. Doesn't matter, Dylan snapped, but his eyes darted nervously. Just behave, and you won't get hurt. Emma slipped on the sneakers, her mind racing. Moving meant a chance to escape, or at least leave another clue. As Dylan unchained her and led her down a hallway, she scanned her surroundings. The warehouse was a maze of crates and tarps, with a faint salty breeze seeping through a crack in the wall. They were near the water, maybe a port. Wilmington, she remembered from their earlier talk. If she could get a message out, her dad might find her. Dylan pushed her into a larger room, where Vince was checking a clipboard. She's the last one, Vince said, barely glancing at Emma. Ship's ready. Boss wants them gone by midnight. Emma's stomach dropped. A ship. They were taking her out of the country. She spotted a stack of papers on a crate. One with the same triangle and wave logo she'd seen on Dylan's tattoo. Global Trade Solutions. She memorized it, her journalist instincts kicking in. If she survived this, she'd make sure these people paid. Move, Dylan said, grabbing her arm. Emma stumbled, pretending to trip, and palmed a pen from the crate. As they walked toward a loading dock, She scratched Wilmington into the underside of a wooden pallet, her hands shaking. It was a long shot, but it was all she had. Back in Wilmington, Tom checked into a cheap motel near the port, his savings already dwindling. He spread out his notes on the bed, Karen's photo, the forum posts, a map of the port. Wilmington was a busy hub, with ships coming and going round the clock. If GTS was moving kids through here, they'd need a front, warehouses, maybe, or a shipping company. He called Detective Coleman, hoping to light a fire under her. "Mr. Harper, you need to stop playing detective," Coleman said, her voice firm. "I looked into GTS. They're a logistics company, clean record. No evidence linking them to Emma." "Then look harder," Tom said, frustration boiling over. "I met a woman whose daughter went missing the same way. Same guy in a photo, same beach setup. GTS is involved, I know it." Coleman sighed. "Send me what you've got, and I'll pass it to our team. But don't do anything reckless. If GTS is what you think, you're out of your league." Tom hung up, his jaw tight. He wasn't waiting for the police anymore. He grabbed his keys and headed to the port, a sprawling maze of cranes and containers glinting under the afternoon sun. He parked near a chain-link fence and watched, his eyes scanning for anything suspicious. Most of the workers looked legit, hauling crates or checking manifests. But then he saw it, a white van pulling into a gated lot. A faint triangle logo on its side, half scrubbed off. Tom's heart pounded. He grabbed his phone and snapped a photo, zooming in on the logo. It matched Karen's description. He waited, watching as two men climbed out, one with a tattoo on his wrist. They disappeared into a warehouse marked GTS storage. Tom's instinct screamed to barge in, but he wasn't stupid. He needed proof, something to force the police to act. He drove back to the motel, his mind racing. Online, he found a public record for GTS, listing their Wilmington address. The warehouse was a start, but he needed more. He posted in the forum again, asking if anyone knew about GTS's operations. A user named Shadow Survivor replied almost instantly, "I worked for GTS. They're not what they seem. Meet me tomorrow, Wilmington Docks, noon. Come alone." Tom stared at the message, a mix of hope and dread settling in his gut. This could be a breakthrough or a trap. Either way, he was going. Emma was out there, counting on him. He thought of her laugh, the way she'd tease him about his bad cooking. "Hold on, kid," he whispered, staring at her Polaroid. "I'm getting closer." In the warehouse, Emma was loaded into a van with two other girls, their faces pale and eyes hollow. She clutched the pen in her pocket, her only weapon. As the van rumbled toward the port, she whispered to the girl beside her, "We're going to get out of this. My dad's coming." The girl didn't respond, but Emma believed it. She had to. The Wilmington port was a jungle of steel and noise, with cranes groaning and ships hulking against the gray sky. It was July 21st, 2024, 9 days since Emma Harper vanished. And Tom Harper stood near a stack of rusted containers, his heart hammering. He was here to meet Shadow Survivor, the mysterious forum user who claimed to know about Global Trade Solutions, GTS. The company Tom was now certain had taken his daughter. The noon sun beat down, but a chill ran through him. This could be his best shot at finding Emma, or a setup that'd get him in over his head. Tom checked his phone again, rereading the message. Wilmington Docks, noon. Come alone. He'd parked his truck a block away, keeping a low profile in a worn baseball cap and sunglasses. The port was busy, workers in hard hats shouting over the clang of metal. Tom scanned the crowd, looking for anyone who stood out. A woman approached, her face half hidden by a hoodie. She was in her 30s, with sharp eyes and a scar across her cheek. "You Tom?" she asked, her voice low. "Yeah," Tom said, tensing. "You Shadow Survivor?" She nodded. "Call me Clara. We don't have much time. Follow me." She led him behind a container, out of sight. Tom hesitated, his gut screaming caution, but the thought of Emma pushed him forward. Clara leaned against the container, her eyes darting to the docks. "I worked for GTS 3 years ago, clerical stuff. Thought it was just a shipping company till I saw what they were really moving. Kids, mostly girls, through ports like this one. I got out when I realized what was happening. But I've been watching them ever since." Tom's stomach churned. "They've got my daughter, Emma. 17, blonde, taken from Sunset Shores. You know where they're keeping her?" Clara's face softened. "I don't know specifics, but GTS runs a tight operation. They use warehouses to hold kids before shipping them out. There's one near here, off River Road. They move fast. Girls don't stay long. If Emma's alive, she's probably headed for a ship called the Horizon Star. It's docked now, leaving tomorrow night. Tom's heart raced. Tomorrow? Where's it going? Could be anywhere, South America, Europe, Asia. GTS has clients all over. Clara pulled a folded paper from her pocket, a crude map of the port with a warehouse marked. This is the place. But it's guarded, Tom. You go in there. You're risking everything. I don't care, Tom said, his voice fierce. She's my kid. Tell me how to get in. Clara shook her head. You're not listening. GTS isn't just some street gang. They've got money, muscle, even cops on their payroll. I'm only here because I owe someone who got me out. But I can't stick around. You want my advice? Get proof and take it to the feds. FBI, not local police. Tom took the map, his hands shaking. Thanks, Clara. If I find Emma, I owe you. Don't thank me yet, Clara said, pulling her hoodie tighter. And watch your back. They're already looking for you. She slipped away, blending into the port's chaos before Tom could ask more. He stared at the map, memorizing the warehouse's location. River Road was a few miles away, a gritty stretch of industrial lots. He wanted to go now, bust down the door, and tear the place apart until he found Emma. But Clara's warning echoed. GTS was dangerous, and he was just one guy. He needed a plan, and he needed the police to take him seriously. He called Detective Coleman, his voice urgent. Coleman. I've got something, he said, pacing. A witness who used to work for GTS. She says they're trafficking kids through Wilmington, using a warehouse on River Road. Emma's there, or she will be. You gotta check it out. Coleman's tone was skeptical. A witness? Who is she? And how'd you find her? Doesn't matter, Tom snapped. She gave me a map. Said they're moving girls on a ship tomorrow night. The Horizon Star. Send someone to that warehouse, now. There was a pause. I'll run it by the team. But we need more than a map from some anonymous source. Stay out of it, Tom. If this is real, you'll only make things worse. Tom hung up, frustration boiling over. The police were too slow. Too cautious. He wasn't waiting for them to catch up. He drove to River Road, the map on the passenger seat. The warehouse was a squat, gray building surrounded by a chain-link fence. Its GTS logo faded but unmistakable. Tom parked a block away, watching from his truck. A van pulled up, and two men stepped out, one with a familiar tattoo, a triangle with a wave. Tom's blood ran cold. He was in the right place. He waited until dusk, then slipped out, sticking to the shadows. The fence was rusted, easy to climb. He dropped to the other side, his heart pounding as he crept toward the warehouse. A side door was ajar, light spilling out. He peered inside and saw crates stacked high, a forklift idling nearby. Voices came from deeper in, men arguing about a schedule. Tom edged closer, his phone ready to record. Then, a hand clamped over his mouth and a blade pressed against his back. Move. And you're done, a voice hissed. Tom froze, his mind racing. He'd been careless, and now he was caught. Across town, in the warehouse's holding area, Emma was huddled with two other girls. Their wrists cuffed. The air was thick with fear, but Emma kept her focus. She'd heard the men mention the Horizon Star, docking tonight. They were moving her soon. Maybe her last chance to leave a clue. She still had the pin she'd swiped, hidden in her sleeve. As Dylan led them to a loading dock, Emma pretended to stumble, dropping to her knees. While he cursed and yanked her up, she scratched Horizon Star, into the concrete floor, praying it would be enough. Keep moving, Dylan growled, shoving her toward a van. Emma glanced at the other girls, their eyes dull with despair. Stay strong, she whispered to them. We're getting out of this. She didn't know if she believed it, but she had to try. Her dad was out there, she could feel it. He'd never give up. Back at the warehouse, Tom was dragged inside by the man with the knife, a burly guy with a shaved head. Who are you? The man demanded, slamming Tom against a crate. Why you snooping? Tom's mind raced. He couldn't fight his way out. Not yet. I'm just a mechanic, he lied, his voice steady. Got the wrong address. Let me go. And I'm gone. The man smirked, patting Tom down and finding the map. Wrong address, huh? This says otherwise. He radioed someone, his voice low. Got a problem. Some guy poking around. What's the boss want? Tom's heart sank as the radio crackled. Bring him in, a cold voice replied. We'll deal with him. The man shoved Tom toward a hallway, the knife still at his back. Tom's eyes darted, searching for anything he could use, a weapon, a distraction. Then he saw it, scratched into the floor, Horizon Star. Emma's initials. His chest tightened with a mix of hope and fear. She was here, or she had been. He was close, closer than ever. But as the man pushed him forward, Tom knew he was walking into a trap. He had to stay sharp, for Emma's sake. Outside, the port hummed with activity, the Horizon Star looming in the distance. Time was running out, and Tom was out of options. But he wasn't giving up. Not now, not ever. The warehouse was a maze of shadows, the air thick with the smell of rust and salt water. Tom Harper's boots echoed on the concrete as the burly man with the shaved head shoved him down a hallway. The knife's tip pressing into his back. It was July 21st, 2024, late evening, and Tom's heart pounded with a mix of fear and hope. He'd seen Emma's initials scratched into the floor, Horizon Star. His daughter was close, or had been. But now, caught by GTS's thugs, he was in deep trouble. He had to think fast, for Emma's sake. Keep moving, the man growled, pushing Tom toward a metal door at the end of the hall. Tom's eyes darted, taking in every detail. A fire extinguisher on the wall, a loose pipe overhead. He wasn't a fighter, just a mechanic with a knack for fixing things, but he'd do whatever it took to get out of this alive. The door swung open, revealing a small office lit by a flickering lamp. A second man sat behind a desk, lean and sharp-eyed, with the same triangle and wave tattoo on his forearm. He looked Tom over like a predator sizing up prey. "So, you're the guy snooping around," he said, his voice calm but cold. "Who sent you?" "Nobody," Tom said, forcing his voice to stay steady. "I'm looking for my daughter, Emma Harper. I know you've got her." The man's eyes narrowed. "You're a long way from home, Mr. Harper, and you're making a big mistake." He nodded to the burly guy, who shoved Tom into a chair, tying his wrists with a zip tie. "What's this map you were carrying?" Tom's mind raced. The map from Clara was still in his pocket, but he couldn't let them know about her. "Just a guess," he said. "I heard GTS was shady. Thought I'd check it out. Let me go, and I'll walk away." The lean man laughed, a chilling sound. "You think you can just walk into our business and walk out? You're not the first parent to get nosy. But you'll be the last if you don't talk. Who's feeding you information?" Tom clenched his jaw, thinking of Emma's initials. She was counting on him. He had to buy time, find a way out. "Nobody's feeding me anything. I'm just a dad trying to find his kid. If you've got Emma, tell me where she is, and I'll leave you alone." The man leaned forward, his smile gone. "You're not in a position to make demands. We know you've been talking to the cops, poking around online. You're a problem, Harper, and we don't like problems." He pulled a phone from his pocket and typed a message, his eyes never leaving Tom. Tom's heart sank. They were on to him, maybe even watching him before he got here. But he wasn't giving up. He tested the zip tie, feeling it bite into his wrists. The fire extinguisher was a few feet away, mounted low on the wall. If he could get to it, maybe he could cause a distraction. He just needed a moment. Before he could act, the burly man's radio crackled. "Vince, get to the dock," a voice said. "Shipment's loading now. Boss wants it done quick." Vince, the burly guy, grunted. "What about this clown?" he asked, jerking a thumb at Tom. "Lock him up," the lean man said. "We'll deal with him after the ship's gone." He stood, grabbing a set of keys. "Let's move." Vince hauled Tom to his feet, dragging him to a small storage room. As they passed the fire extinguisher, Tom stumbled, faking a trip. He fell hard, his shoulders slamming into the wall. But his fingers grazed the extinguisher's pin. "Get up," Vince barked, yanking him upright. Tom hid his smirk. He'd loosened the pin. It wasn't much, but it was something. Vince shoved him into the storage room, slamming the door. Tom heard a lock click, then footsteps fading. He was alone, his wrists still bound, but Emma's clue burned in his mind. Horizon Star. The ship was leaving tonight, and she was on it. He had to get out, now. Tom twisted his wrists, the zip tie cutting into his skin. He scanned the room, empty except for a stack of crates and a rusty nail protruding from the wall. He backed up to the nail, sawing the tie against it. Pain shot through his wrists, but he kept going. Sweat beading on his forehead. After what felt like forever, the tie snapped. He rubbed his raw skin, his mind racing. The fire extinguisher was his best shot. He just had to get back to it. Meanwhile, at the Wilmington docks, Emma was herded onto a loading dock with the two other girls, their hands cuffed. The horizon star loomed ahead, a massive container ship lit by harsh floodlights. The air was heavy with diesel and salt, and Emma's heart pounded. This was it, the moment they'd ship her out, maybe forever. But she wasn't done fighting. She still had the pen tucked in her sleeve and her dad's stubborn streak running through her veins. Dylan was there, barking orders with a nervous edge. "Line up." "No talking," he said, his eyes scanning the dock. Emma noticed his tension. Something was off. Maybe her dad was causing trouble, stirring things up. The thought gave her a spark of hope. As they shuffled toward a ramp, Emma spotted a loose board on a crate. She slowed, letting the other girls pass, and pretended to adjust her shoe. With a quick glance at Dylan, she scratched each. "Help," into the wood, her pen nearly slipping from her sweaty fingers. Dylan turned, and she straightened, her heart in her throat. "What's the holdup?" he snapped, grabbing her arm. "Nothing," Emma said, meeting his gaze. "Just tired." She let him pull her forward, praying the clue would be found. On the ship, they were led to a hidden compartment below deck, a cramped space with bolted benches. The other girls sat silently, but Emma's mind raced. She overheard Dylan talking to a crew member about a problem at the warehouse. Her pulse quickened. Was it her dad? She clutched the pen tighter, vowing to leave one more clue before they locked her in. Back in the warehouse, Tommy's the storage room door opened, wincing at the creak. The hallway was empty, but voices echoed from the loading dock. He crept toward the fire extinguisher, his hand shaking as he yanked the pin free. He hefted it, the weight reassuring. If he could spray it, he'd have cover to run. He moved toward the dock, staying low behind crates. Peering around a corner, he saw Vince and a lean man overseeing a van being loaded. No sign of Emma, but the ship's name, Horizon Star, was painted on a crate. Tom's chest tightened. He was so close. He raised the extinguisher, ready to spray, when a hand grabbed his shoulder. It was a new guy, younger, with a panicked look. "You're Emma's dad, right?" he whispered. "I saw your truck." "I'm Jake. I work here, but I'm not with them. I can help." Tom froze, unsure if this was a trick. "Why should I trust you?" "I heard them talk about a girl named Emma," Jake said, his voice low. "Blonde, about 17. She's on the ship, but they're moving her tonight. I want out of this mess. Help me, and I'll help you." Tom's gut screamed caution, but he had no choice. "Get me to that ship," he said. "Now." Jake nodded, leading him to a side exit. "There's a service boat by the dock. We can use it to get close. But we gotta move fast. They're loading now." Tom followed, the extinguisher still in hand. As they slipped outside, the Horizon Star's lights glowed in the distance. Emma was there, waiting for him. But the dock was crawling with GTS men, and Tom knew one wrong move could end it all. He thought of Emma's smile, her voice calling him Dad. He'd fight through hell to reach her, and he was almost there. The Wilmington docks were a chaos of light and shadow, the Horizon Star towering over the water like a steel giant. It was July 21st, 2024, just past 10 p.m., and Tom Harper crouched in the dark, his heart pounding as he followed Jake toward a small service boat tethered to a pier. The air was thick with diesel fumes, and the distant hum of cranes mixed with the lapping waves. Tom still clutched the fire extinguisher from the warehouse, his only weapon, and Jake's nervous glances didn't exactly inspire confidence. But Emma was on that ship. Tom could feel it, and he wasn't turning back. "Keep low," Jake whispered, his voice barely audible over the dock's noise. "Guards are everywhere. If they spot us, we're done." Tom nodded, his eyes locked on the ship's floodlit deck. He didn't fully trust Jake, this kid who claimed to be a reluctant GTS worker, but he had no choice. Jake knew the port, knew the ship. "How do we get on?" Tom asked, wiping sweat from his brow. "There's a maintenance hatch near the stern," Jake said, pointing to the ship's rear. "Used for loading supplies. It's our best shot, but we gotta move fast. They're prepping to sail." Tom's stomach twisted. If the Horizon Star left with Emma on board, she could be halfway across the world before he got another chance. He thought of her initials scratched in the warehouse, Horizon Star. She was fighting, leaving clues, counting on him. "Let's go," he said, his voice firm. They crept along the pier, sticking to the shadows of stacked containers. The service boat was a beat-up skiff, barely big enough for two. Jake untied it, and Tom climbed in, the extinguisher heavy in his lap. Jake rowed, his strokes quiet but urgent, guiding them toward the ship's looming hull. The water was choppy, rocking the boat, and Tom's heart raced as they neared the maintenance hatch, a small, rusted panel just above the waterline. "Stay sharp," Jake said, tying the boat to a cleat. "If anyone's inside, we're in trouble." He pried the hatch open with a crowbar, the metal groaning. Tom went first, squeezing through the narrow opening into a dark, humid corridor. The ship's engines rumbled below, vibrating the walls. Jake followed, pulling the hatch shut behind them. Inside, the corridor was a tangle of pipes and cables, lit by dim emergency lights. Tom's boots clanged softly on the metal floor, every sound making him wince. "Where's the holding area?" he whispered. "Lower deck, near the cargo hold," Jake said, leading the way. "They keep the girls in a hidden compartment. I've seen it once, but never went in." Tom's chest tightened. "You better not be playing me, kid." "I'm not," Jake said, his voice shaking. "I didn't sign up for this. I thought I was just moving crates, not people. I want out as bad as you want your daughter." Tom didn't respond, but he kept Jake in his peripheral vision, ready for any sign of betrayal. They descended a narrow stairwell, the air growing heavier with each step. At the bottom, they reached a locked door marked storage. Jake fumbled with a key he'd swiped from the warehouse, his hands trembling. "This is it," he said, turning the lock. The door creaked open, revealing a small, dimly lit room. 3 girls sat on bolted benches, their wrists cuffed to the wall. Tom's eyes locked on the one in the middle, blonde hair, pale but defiant. "Emma," he whispered, rushing forward. "Dad." Emma's voice broke, her eyes wide with shock and hope. "You're here." Tom dropped to his knees beside her, his hands fumbling with her cuffs. "I'm getting you out, kid. Hold on." He turned to Jake. "Find something to break these chains." Jake nodded, searching the room. Emma gripped Tom's hand, tears streaming down her face. "I knew you'd come," she said. "I left clues, my initials, on the ship, in the warehouse." "I saw them," Tom said, his voice thick with pride. "You're so brave, Emma." He brushed a strand of hair from her face, his heart aching at how thin she looked. The other girls, wide-eyed, whispered to each other. "Please, help us too," one said, her voice barely audible. Tom nodded. "We're all getting out. I promise." Jake returned with a rusty bolt cutter from a toolbox. "This'll work," he said, starting on Emma's cuffs. The metal groaned, then snapped. Emma rubbed her wrists, wincing but free. As Jake moved to the next girl, a loud clang echoed from the corridor. Footsteps, heavy, fast, approached. "Hide," Tom hissed, pulling Emma behind a crate. Jake and the other girls ducked low, the room tense with fear. The door burst open, and Vince, the burly man from the warehouse, stormed in, a flashlight in one hand, a radio in the other. "I know you're here," he growled. "Come out, or it's gonna get ugly." Tom's heart pounded. He gripped the fire extinguisher, his only weapon. He whispered to Emma, "Stay down. No matter what." She nodded, her eyes fierce despite her fear. Vince swept the flashlight across the room, his beam landing on Jake, who was crouched by the toolbox. "You," Vince snarled. "You're the rat, aren't you?" He lunged, grabbing Jake by the collar and slamming him against the wall. Tom saw his chance. He leaped from behind the crate, spraying the extinguisher in Vince's face. The white foam blinded him, and Vince stumbled, cursing. Tom swung the extinguisher, catching Vince's shoulder. The big man fell, dropping the radio, which crackled with an angry voice. "Vince." "Report. What's going on?" Emma scrambled to Jake's side, helping him up. "We gotta go," she said, her voice urgent. The other girls, now free, huddled behind her. Tom grabbed Vince's radio, hoping to buy time. "All clear," he said into it, mimicking Vince's gruff tone. "Just a glitch." The radio went silent, but Tom knew it wouldn't last. "Which way out?" he asked Jake, who was clutching his side, but standing. "Back through the hatch," Jake said. "But the dock's crawling with guards. We need a distraction." Emma's eyes lit up. "I can help." She grabbed a wrench from the toolbox and pointed to a pipe overhead. "That's a steam line. If we break it, it'll set off alarms, maybe draw the guards away." Tom hesitated, not wanting Emma in more danger, but her determined look stopped him. "Okay, but be quick," he said. "Jake, get the girls to the hatch. I'll cover you." Emma climbed onto a crate, swinging the wrench at the pipe. It cracked, hissing steam, and an alarm blared, red lights flashing. "Go," she shouted, jumping down. Tom grabbed her hand, and they ran. Jake and the girls close behind. The corridor was chaos, steam clouding the air, alarms deafening. They reached the maintenance hatch, but shouts echoed behind them, guards, closing in. Tom pushed Emma through first, then the others, his heart racing. Jake was last, but as he climbed through, a hand grabbed his ankle. "Got you," a guard yelled. Tom swung the extinguisher again, hitting the guard's arm. Jake broke free, and Tom slammed the hatch shut, jamming the lock with the wrench. "Move," he shouted, helping Jake into the service boat. The girls were already aboard, shivering but alive. Tom rowed, his arms burning as the Horizon Star's alarm screamed. They were halfway to the pier when floodlights swept the water. A GTS speedboat roared toward them, its engine drowning out the alarms. "They're coming," Emma cried, pointing. Tom rowed harder, his shoulder aching from Vince's earlier hit. He looked at Emma, her face set with the same stubborn grit he'd always loved. They weren't safe yet, but they were together, and that gave him strength. "Hold on," he said, steering toward a cluster of docked boats for cover. The speedboat was gaining, and Tom knew they couldn't outrun it. But he had one last trick up his sleeve, a flare gun he'd spotted in the skiff. He grabbed it, praying it worked. Emma's hand squeezed his, and he felt her trust, her belief in him. He wasn't letting her down again. The Wilmington port was a blur of light and chaos, the Horizon Star's alarms screaming into the night. It was July 21st, 2024, nearing midnight. And Tom Harper rowed the small service boat with every ounce of strength he had, his shoulder burning from the effort. Emma sat beside him, her hand gripping his arm, while Jake and the three rescued girls huddled in the back, their faces pale under the dock's floodlights. The GTS speedboat roared closer, its engine a menacing growl cutting through the choppy waves. Tom clutched the flare gun he'd found in the skiff, his last hope to get them out of this alive. "Dad, they're gaining," Emma said, her voice tight with fear but steady. She pointed to the speedboat, now close enough to see two men aboard, one aiming a flashlight at them. "I know, kid," Tom said, his jaw clenched. "Hold on tight." He steered toward a cluster of docked fishing boats, hoping to lose their pursuers in the maze. The girls clung to the boat's edges, and Jake scanned the water, his eyes wide with panic. "They'll cut us off before we reach the pier," Jake said, his voice shaking. "We need help now." Tom's mind raced. He'd tried calling Detective Coleman earlier, but the signal was spotty on the water. He glanced at the flare gun, a single shot, meant for emergencies. This was it. "Emma, take the oars," he said, handing them over. "Keep us moving." Emma nodded, her hands steady despite the fear in her eyes. She rowed, her blonde hair whipping in the wind, while Tom aimed the flare gun at the sky. He pulled the trigger, and a bright red streak shot upward, bursting into a fiery glow that lit the port like a beacon. The girls gasped, and Jake muttered, "Hope someone sees that." The speedboat veered closer, its spotlight blinding. "Stop the boat," a man shouted through a megaphone. "You're done." Tom ignored him, grabbing the oars back from Emma. "Keep your heads down," he told the girls. He rowed harder, weaving between the fishing boats. The speedboat followed, its hull scraping against a buoy. Tom's heart pounded. He needed to buy time, just enough for the flare to draw attention. Emma crouched beside him, her voice low. "Dad, the pier's close. If we can get there, we can run for it." "Good thinking," Tom said, pride swelling despite the danger. "Stay ready." He glanced at Jake. "You know any shortcuts to the main dock?" Jake nodded, pointing to a narrow channel between two barges. "There. It's tight, but the speedboat's too big to follow." Tom steered for the channel, the skiff rocking as waves slapped its sides. The speedboat tried to cut them off, but its driver misjudged, clipping a barge. The impact slowed them, giving Tom a brief lead. He pushed through the channel, the barge's rusted hulls looming like walls. The girls held their breath, and Emma's hand found Tom's, squeezing tight. They emerged near the main pier, where the flare's glow had drawn a crowd. Port workers pointed at the sky, and a police siren wailed in the distance. Tom's hopes surged. Someone had seen it. But the speedboat was back, closing the gap. "Jake, get the girls ready to jump," Tom said. "We're hitting the pier." Jake helped the girls to the bow, their cuffs clinking. Emma stayed by Tom, her eyes scanning the dock. "There," she said, pointing to a police boat approaching, its blue lights flashing. "They're coming." Tom rowed with everything he had, his arms screaming. The pier was yards away, but the speedboat was on them, its engine roaring. One of the men stood, raising something, a pipe, maybe, or a bat. Tom didn't wait to find out. He grabbed the fire extinguisher, still strapped to the boat, and sprayed it at the speedboat, the foam hitting the driver's face. The boat swerved, buying them seconds. "Jump!" Tom shouted as the skiff bumped the pier. Jake leaped first, helping the girls onto the dock. Emma hesitated, grabbing Tom's arm. "Not without you," she said. "I'm right behind you," Tom promised, pushing her toward the edge. She jumped, landing hard but scrambling up. Tom followed, but as he climbed onto the pier, the speedboat rammed the skiff, splintering it. He stumbled, his leg twisting, but Emma and Jake pulled him to safety. The police boat was closing in, its siren deafening. The speedboat's driver shouted something, then turned, speeding back toward the Horizon Star. Tom collapsed on the pier, his chest heaving, Emma's arms around him. "You did it, Dad," she whispered, tears streaming down her face. "Not yet," Tom said, his voice hoarse. He looked at the Horizon Star, its engines rumbling as it prepared to leave. "They're still out there. We gotta stop that ship." The police boat reached the pier, and Detective Coleman climbed out, her face a mix of relief and urgency. "Harper, what the hell's going on?" she demanded, helping the girls to their feet. "We saw the flare. GTS has more kids on that ship," Tom said, standing despite the pain in his leg. "Emma was one of them. They're trafficking girls, Coleman. You gotta stop the Horizon Star before it leaves." Coleman's eyes widened as she took in Emma and the others, their cuffs and haunted expressions. "You're sure?" she asked, already radioing for backup. "Dead sure," Tom said. "I saw their operation. Warehouses, guards, the works. Emma left clues. She's the reason we're here." Emma nodded, her voice steady. "I scratched my initials everywhere. Warehouse, dock, ship. There's more girls in a compartment below deck. You have to hurry." Coleman barked orders into her radio, calling for the Coast Guard and FBI. "Stay here," she told Tom. "You've done enough." "No way," Tom said, his voice firm. "I'm seeing this through." He looked at Emma, expecting her to stay behind, but her jaw was set. "I'm coming too," she said. "I know where the compartment is. I can help." Tom hesitated, his instinct to protect her warring with pride in her courage. "Okay," he said finally. "But you stay close." Coleman sighed, but didn't argue. "Fine. But you follow my lead. Let's move." She led them to the police boat, where officers were already coordinating with the Coast Guard. Jake stayed with the other girls, promising to keep them safe. As the boat sped toward the Horizon Star, Tom held Emma's hand, the weight of the past 9 days crashing over him. They were so close, but GTS wasn't done fighting. On the ship, Dylan stood on the bridge, his face pale as he watched the police boat approach. "They're coming," he told the captain, a grizzled man with the GTS tattoo. "That Harper guy, he's trouble." "Then handle it," the captain snapped. "Get the cargo secured and get us out of here. We're not losing this shipment." Dylan nodded, grabbing a radio and heading below deck. He knew Emma's escape had blown their cover, but he wasn't going down without a fight. As he checked the hidden compartment, he found another of her clues. Help scratched into a bench. He cursed, realizing how much she'd outsmarted them. But it didn't matter. The ship was moving, and no one was stopping them now. The police boat pulled alongside the Horizon Star, its spotlight sweeping the deck. Coleman shouted through a megaphone, "This is the police. Stop the ship and prepare to be boarded." The ship didn't slow, its engines roaring louder. Tom's heart sank. They were running. "We need to get on board," he told Coleman. "They'll hide the girls if we don't move fast." Coleman nodded, signaling her team. "Coast Guard's on the way. But we can't wait. We're boarding now." She handed Tom a life vest, her expression serious. "You sure about this?" "For Emma," Tom said, glancing at his daughter. "For all of them." Emma squeezed his hand, her eyes fierce. "We'll find them, Dad. Together." As the police boat maneuvered closer, Tom braced himself. The Horizon Star loomed like a fortress, but he wasn't afraid. He had Emma by his side, and they were bringing those girls home, no matter what it took. The Horizon Star's deck was a storm of noise and light, its engines rumbling as it tried to pull away from the Wilmington port. It was July 21st, 2024, just past midnight. And Tom Harper clung to the police boat's railing, his heart pounding as waves rocked them against the ship's massive hull. Emma stood beside him, her face set with determination, while Detective Rachel Coleman shouted orders to her team. The Coast Guard was minutes away, but the ship was moving, and every second risked losing the girls still trapped below deck. Tom gripped Emma's hand, vowing to finish this, for her, for the others, for every family torn apart by GTS. Boarding now, Coleman yelled, her team tossing grappling hooks to the ship's rail. Officers climbed first, their boots clanging on the steel deck. Tom helped Emma onto the ladder, his leg aching from the pier scramble, but his focus razor-sharp. Stay close, he told her, climbing behind her. She nodded, her eyes fierce, the same grit that had kept her fighting through 9 days of hell. On deck, the police fanned out, flashlights sweeping the shadows. The Horizon Star's crew, GTS operatives, not sailors, scattered, some shouting, others running for cover. Coleman's voice boomed through a megaphone. This is the police. Surrender now. But the ship didn't stop, its engines roaring louder. Tom scanned the deck, his heart racing. Emma, you said the girls are below, right? Where's the compartment? Lower deck. Near the cargo hold, Emma said, her voice steady. There's a hidden door, looks like a bulkhead, but it's got a lock. She pointed to a stairwell hatch, guarded by a man with a GTS tattoo. That's the way. Coleman spotted the guard and signaled 2 officers to take him down. They moved fast, pinning the man before he could raise an alarm. Clear, one called. And Tom and Emma followed Coleman to the hatch. The stairwell was narrow, the air thick with oil and fear. Tom's hand tightened around the wrench he'd grabbed from the police boat. His only weapon now that the fire extinguisher was gone. Below deck, the corridors were a maze, lit by flickering bulbs. Emma led the way, her memory sharp despite her exhaustion. This way, she whispered, pointing to a rusted bulkhead with a heavy padlock. That's it. Coleman nodded, pulling a bolt cutter from her gear. Stand back, she said, snapping the lock. The door creaked open, revealing a cramped compartment. 5 girls, all teenagers, sat chained to benches, their faces pale but hopeful as light flooded in. You're safe now, Coleman said, her voice softening. We're getting you out. Tom rushed in, helping an officer free the girls. Emma knelt beside a girl who was shaking, whispering, It's okay. My dad's here. We're going home. Tom's chest swelled with pride, but the fight wasn't over. Footsteps echoed in the corridor, more GTS men, closing in. Dylan's coming, Emma warned, recognizing the voice shouting orders outside. He's one of the leaders. Coleman radioed for backup, her face grim. We need to move these girls, now. Harper, can you and Emma get them to the deck? On it, Tom said, helping the girls to their feet. They were weak, some stumbling, but Emma's presence seemed to steady them. Follow me, she said, leading them toward the stairwell. Tom brought up the rear. The wrench ready, his eyes scanning for trouble. As they reached the stairs, Dylan burst into the corridor with 2 men, their faces twisted with rage. You're not leaving, Dylan shouted, lunging at Emma. Tom reacted without thinking, swinging the wrench and catching Dylan's arm. The man yelped, dropping a knife, and Tom tackled him, pinning him to the floor. Stay down, Tom growled, his voice raw. The other men hesitated, but Coleman's officers stormed in, cuffing them before they could act. Dylan struggled, cursing, but Tom held him until an officer took over. You're done, Tom said, standing. You'll never touch my daughter again. Emma grabbed his arm, her eyes wide. Dad, the ship's still moving. We gotta stop it. Coleman nodded, radioing the Coast Guard. They're boarding from the bow. We need to secure the bridge. She looked at Tom and Emma. You've done enough. Get the girls to the deck. No way, Emma said, her voice firm. I'm finishing this. Those girls need to know it's over. Tom met her gaze, seeing the woman she was becoming strong, fearless, like her mom. Together, then, he said, and Coleman didn't argue. They climbed to the deck, where the Coast Guard had arrived, their boats surrounding the Horizon Star. Officers swarmed the bridge, and after a tense standoff, the captain surrendered, shutting down the engines. The ship slowed, its rumble fading, and a cheer went up from the police. Tom pulled Emma close, his heart finally easing. They'd done it. As the girls were led to safety, wrapped in blankets and guided to the police boats, Tom and Emma stayed on deck, the night air cool against their skin. Coleman approached, her face weary but relieved. We found your clues, Emma, she said. Your initials on the warehouse, the dock, the ship. They're evidence now. GTS is going down. Emma nodded, tears in her eyes. I just wanted my dad to find me. You did more than that, Coleman said. You saved these girls, too. Tom hugged Emma tight, his voice breaking. I'm so proud of you, kid. I'm sorry I wasn't watching that day on the beach. It's not your fault. Emma said, hugging him back. You came for me. That's what matters. They stood there, the port lights glinting off the water, as the weight of 9 days lifted. The road ahead would be tough. Emma needed time to heal, and Tom needed to forgive himself, but they were together, and that was enough. In the weeks that followed, Wilmington buzzed with news of the GTS takedown. The FBI raided their warehouses, uncovering records that linked the company to trafficking networks across 3 continents. Dylan and the captain faced long prison sentences, and dozens of girls were rescued, thanks to Emma's clues and Tom's relentless fight. Jake, the young GTS worker, turned witness, helping the feds dismantle the operation. Clara, the former employee who'd tipped Tom off, disappeared into a new life, her debt to the world paid. Tom and Emma returned to Sunset Shores, their small house feeling alive again with Emma's laughter. She started therapy, working through the trauma, but her spirit was unbroken. She enrolled at UNC, her dream of becoming an investigative journalist stronger than ever. She kept one Polaroid from the beach, the blurry man now a symbol of justice, not fear. She framed it, a reminder of what she'd survived. Tom went back to fixing boats, but he made time for Emma, movie nights, fishing trips, moments he'd never take for granted again. He rebuilt an old skiff, naming it Emma's Light, and they took it out one sunny afternoon, the ocean sparkling like it had the day she vanished. On the beach, they laid a wreath in the sand, honoring the girls who didn't make it home and the ones who did. As the sun set, painting the sky in oranges and pinks, Tom and Emma stood side by side, the waves lapping at their feet. You think Mom's watching? Emma asked, her voice soft. I know she is, Tom said, his arm around her. And she's proud of you, just like I am. Emma smiled, leaning into him. The sand stretched out before them, smooth and untouched, no tracks to follow now. They were home, and no one could take that away.